Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be making a tutorial on how to cut and sew this bustier gown with Basque waist effect. So if this is something you like to learn, kindly stay tuned to the end. So these are the fabric we are going to use, this Ankara print and this bridal material. Then we are going to be using these nets for our yoke. So we are going to go ahead and set this aside. Then I've made some lines on the pattern paper: the shoulder line, the bust point, the under bust, the waistline, and the full length. This full length is just a placeholder. We are still going to change this later. So the first thing I'm going to do now is to measure my shoulder measurement. My shoulder measurement is 16 inches divided by 2, that is 8 inches. So I'm going to insert 8 inches and I'm going to add half an inch allowance to it. Then on that shoulder point, I'm going to come down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope. Then I will measure my neck width, which is 3.5 inches, and I'm going to connect that to my shoulder slope like so. So the next thing I'm going to do is to measure my neck depth. I don't want the neck of this outfit to be too deep, so I'm just going to go down by 3 inches. So that's that about that. So to measure our chest line, I'm going to divide my bust circumference by 6 and I'm going to add 2 inches to it, and it gives me 8.5 inches, and that's what I measured from the shoulder slope to the line I'm just drawing now. So the line I'm drawing now is the chest line. So on the chest line, I'm going to also insert my shoulder line measurement of 8.5 inches. I will insert it there now. So once I insert it, I'm going to use my ruler to connect it together to the shoulder slope like so. Then I'm going to measure this new line. I'm going to measure it and get the midpoint. And once I get the midpoint, I'm going to go in by half an inch. So after going in by half an inch, I'm going to measure my bust circumference divided by 4 on my chest line, and my bust circumference divided by 4 is 10.75, and I'm just going to use those 3 points to form my armhole like so. So after forming my armhole, the next thing is to go ahead and create our bustier. And to create the bustier, I'm going to go to the full length. I'll measure my nipple to nipple measurements divided by 2. My nipple to nipple measurement is 8.5 divided by 2, that's 4.25 of an inch, and that's what I just measured now. I measured it on the full length and I connected it straight to the chest line. On the under bust, I'm going to go out on both sides of that line by 1 inch, and I'm going to take it down to the full length like so. Then on my bust point, I'm going to come down by 1 inch. Then I'm going to take my curve rule and connect that 1 inch that I came down with at the bust point to the 1 inches I came out with on both sides of my line on the under bust like so. So our bustier is already taking shape. So the next thing I'm going to do is to create my yoke, where my yoke will start and where it will end. So I'm going to use my curve rule to make a sort of a sweetheart neckline from my chest line. So if you want yours to be deeper than the chest line, you can go ahead and do that, but I don't want mine to be deeper than the chest line. So that's what I'm measuring now, even though I later adjusted this yoke to connect to the armhole. So I will extend the straight line from my chest line to the neck yoke line that I just drew now, and I'll go out on both sides by 1 inch as well. Then I'll use my curve rule to connect both together to the 1 inch I came down with on the bust point. So we have marked our bustier. So the next thing we are going to do is to mark our circumference measurements. I already marked my bust circumference measurement. I'm going to measure the distance, distance between the two lines there, what we are cutting off. I'll measure it, add it to it, then I'll add seam allowance. Then I'll go to the waistline, measure my waist circumference divided by 4, and I'm going to insert what we are cutting off as a dart to it. Then I will insert my allowance. So I'm going to connect those points together into a straight line like so. So the next thing is to form the waistline base, the Basque effect on the waistline. So I went down by 6 inches and I just connected it to the side. I went down by 6 inches at the center front and I connected it to the with a straight line to the waistline. So that's how I just created the waistline Basque effect, and it's as simple as that. So I'm cutting out all this. So this is my front pattern paper, and before I go ahead and separate all these pieces, I'm going to go ahead and use it to mark out my back panel. So I've used my front pattern paper to mark out specific lines on the back panel. So I marked the zipper allowance, and what I'm marking now is the neck depth of the back panel. The neck depth is 1 inch, and that's what I just measured now. And on the chest line, we only need the chest line and the waistline for the back panel. On the chest line, I measured my bust circumference. Then I'll go ahead and measure my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2, both on the chest line and on the waistline. Then on the waistline, and I'm going to connect them together with a straight line. Then on the waistline, I'm going to go out on both sides by half inch, which I'm going to use to form my dart leg. Mind you, any measurement that you are measuring on your back panel is going to start after your zipper allowance, so take note of that. So I'll go ahead to form my dart legs, and these are my dart legs. So after that, I'll go ahead and continue measuring my circumference, but before that, I'm going to get my armhole, just as we got our front panel armhole, by dividing this center by 2, going in by half an inch, then connecting it together to the chest line. So we'll form our armhole, and once we form our armhole, we are going to continue measuring our circumference. We have gotten our bust circumference, and I'm going to add 1.5 inch seam allowance. On the waistline, I'll measure my waist circumference divided by 4. I will add the 1 inch that we are taking in as that. Then I'm going to add 1.5 inch seam allowance. Then I'm going to connect that together. So for the yoke of my back panel, I just want to create a beautiful effect on it, just something like a keyhole, but not a keyhole per se. So I'm going to come down from the neck depth by 1 inch, and from that 1 inch that I came down, I'm going to place my curve on it and just go down and just create a little curve to meet the dart line like so. So that side is going to be opened. So the next thing now is to go ahead and cut it out. And once I finish cutting it out, I will separate the yoke from the main bodies. This is how it is going to be. So I'm just trying to label my pattern paper so I will not make mistake. Then I'll go ahead and cut and separate the front panel like so. So these are the pieces. This is the center front and this is the side front for my front panel. So these are the pieces that we have for the front panel and the back panel, the upper part of our dress. So I'll go ahead and cut this out on my fabric. So guys, I've gone ahead to cut it out on the fabric, and this is what I have. And I went ahead to cut my wording for the bustier as well, both for the center front and side front. I've gone ahead to cut my back panel and the yokes with my necks. So the first thing I'm going to do is to stitch the yoke. So as you can see, I added about half an inch allowance to the yoke of the back panel, which is what I'm going to use to join it together. So for the yoke of the front panel, I cut two pieces for each yoke. So for the yoke of this front panel, we have 2 pieces. So I'm just going to sew it round on the neck, then I will flip it and top stitch, just like you will do when you are sewing a fabric and a lining together. So like I was explaining earlier, I added half an inch allowance to the yoke of the back panel at the neckline side, because that's what I'm going to use to join together. So I'll take it to my machine and join together like so, then like so, and then I'm going to close it down like so. So it's only the armhole part and the shoulder part that will be opened for the yoke of the back panel. So I'll set that aside and I'll bring my front panel. So for my front panel, I added half an inch allowance to the sides of the pattern paper, because we need that half an inch to join the center front and the side fronts together. So I'm going to go and fix my wording to it. I'll make sure that I place the gummy part of the wording on the wrong side of the fabric, and as you can see, I left about half an inch allowance for each of these pieces. Then after attaching the wording, I'll take each of the piece of the center front and the side front and just place it on each other like so, right side facing each other, and stitch it on both sides. I will do the same for the lining. So this is what we have at the end of the day after attaching the wording and after stitching together. As you can see, the bustier is not standing properly, and that's because the wording I used is a very soft wording. So these are my yokes that I've already joined together, and the next thing is to go ahead and fix the front yoke to the bustier. So to do that, I'm going to make sure that the center of the yoke and the center of my bodice is aligned like so, and I'm going to pin it down from one side to the other side. Make sure that you are very careful and you are patient while pinning down. So as you can see, I've not stitched it together, just pinned it down, and it's already looking so good. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to place my lining on top of it, because we are going to sandwich the yoke in the middle of the fabric and the lining. So I'll stitch it down like so, and to make sure this fabric is lying down flat, I'm going to stitch my hemming gum to it. So when I'm done, I'll just flip it to the other side and iron it down. So for the back panel as well, I'll go ahead and fix my yoke to the main bodice, but I need to notch where the that is going to end, because that's where the yoke is going to start from. So I'm going to align the yoke, making sure that I pick the right yoke for the right fabric. Do you get? So the closed part of the yoke should be facing your zipper allowance. So that's how you know whether you have picked the right one. So I'll pin down the yoke like so, place the lining on it, and I'll stitch down with the hemming gum just like we did for the front panel, and I'll go and do that. So this is what we have. See how the wrong side of the neckline is looking. Nothing is lifting, nothing is rising, because we used the hemming gum to seal it up. So this is our back panel. Let me just lay it on top of each other so that you will know how it's going to look when we finish stitching it together. So when we finish stitching this back panel, this is how it's going to look. So I will set that aside. Then I will bring the skirt part of my dress. I've already joined the skirt parts together. So this is the back panel of the skirt part of the dress. So I'll place the half length on it like so, making sure I picked the right one for each pattern, or for each of the back panel, and I'll stitch it down together. So to attach the front panel, the upper part of the front panel to the skirt part, I'm going to fold my skirts into two like so. So after folding into two, I'll fold my half length also into two and place it on each other, making sure that the waistline are aligning properly. So see the way I'm just aligning the waistline, and I'll make sure that the centers are also aligning. So once all these are aligning, I'm going to take my chalk and I'm just going to chalk down on where the half length is ending on the front panel. So that's what I'm doing here. So after doing that, I will lift up my fabric, my half length, and I'm going to cut off the remaining parts of the skirt. But while cutting it off, make sure that you leave about half an inch before you cut off above the chalk line, because that's going to serve as your seam allowance for joining the half length to the skirt part of the dress. So this is what we have after cutting out the Basque effect. So I'm going to place the front panel, the half length to the skirt part, aligning the center like so. Then I'll pin it down to one side, take it to my machine, stitch it. So I'll stitch it from the center, start stitching from the center, then I'll stitch it upward like this. Then after that, I'll now do the other side and stitch it upward. So this is what we have after stitching our half length of the front panel to the skirt part. And as you can see, our Basque effect is lying flat and lying properly. So the next thing we are going to do is to take our back panel, and as you can see, I've attached my zipper to the back panel as well. So I'm going to place the back panel and the front panel on each other, making sure that the right sides are facing each other, and I'm going to align them properly. So when you want to sew the shoulder of both panels, make sure that you pick the lining part of the shoulder of the back panel and flip it to cover the front panel like so. So when you flip it to cover the front panel, you stitch it down. After stitching, you now turn it out. It's going to make your neckline look very neat. So I'm just going to pin down both the front panel and the back panel together. So after pinning down, I'm going to go ahead and shape it by measuring my circumference, my bust circumference, waist circumference, and hip circumference, and I'm going to chalk it down. So I'll take it to my machine to sew down on the chalk, then I'll fix the sleeve and I'll come back to show you what we have. So this is the final look of our outfit. Thank you so much guys for watching this tutorial, and I'll see you guys in the next one.